Hello everybody, this is Liliana Rowena, and today we are going to be talking about two lovely cyberpunk anime from the 90s, Neon Genesis Evangelion and Serial Experiments Lain. So I'm talking about these two series in the same video because I think they are very similar series, and I can't confirm it, but I do have a feeling Serial Experiments Lain probably did borrow a little bit from Neon Genesis Evangelion, or if it didn't, these were pretty pertinent themes at the time. So, I watched both these series back to back, and I loved both of them. I am going to talk about Evangelion first, because it is the freshest in my mind, since I finished watching it just a few days ago, as it dropped on Netflix, which I was super excited about, because I haven't been able to watch it beforehand, because I really like to avoid pirating anime if possible. I really don't like to watch it if it's not legally available, so I hadn't had a chance to see it. But without further ado, I really loved the story of Evangelion. I really liked how it explored the mecha genre, although I'm not really into mecha. The only other mecha I've seen was also made by Gainax, which would be Gurren Lagann, which is a fun little show. I really enjoyed Neon Genesis Evangelion as it kind of explored very well the ideas of like loneliness and how do people work, and the show itself was just an experience. Like, going into that show, I expected darker themes, I knew that, but I wasn't expecting to leave with what I did from that series. And it was just a really cool series. I enjoyed all of the different characterizations of the different characters. I liked how all of the EVA pilots are obnoxiously 14. They're just in your face 14-year-old children. There's no way around it. They act really immature. They don't really know what's going on. They do things that don't make sense to adult human beings, but they're 14-year-olds. And I'm contrasting this to Serial Experiments Lain because it also explores some of those themes and ideas as well, of this loneliness and how do you connect to people and how do you really get close to other people in an age of like technology, or in an age of apocalypse in the case of Evangelion. And I'd say both of these stories are kind of like why you shouldn't give depressed teenagers godlike powers. It's probably because in the case of Shinji, he has a very interesting character development of him just being very realistically a 14-year-old boy in his situation. Before I watched Evangelion, I heard from a lot of people, oh, he was super annoying, he's super weak or wimpy, and honestly, I'm like, I can't blame this kid for any of his actions. I'm like, dude, okay, well, there's one thing I can blame him for, but we all know what that is, and we're not talking about that today. It is just a really fascinating way to explore those themes. I really enjoyed how Shinji he did have character development, but he didn't just magically become all of a sudden a badass hero. The trauma of what he deals with does continually kind of break him down, and all of the other characters in that series, and the way that explores just the depth of sadness and hope and what happens if you break it over and over again. Like, where do people get to? And this series is gonna have spoilers. This video will definitely have spoilers in it. And it kind of explores what happens when you keep fighting for something, but it's an inevitability. Eventually everything goes wrong. And I find it really fascinating the way that it kind of explores isolation in a different way than Lain does, because that came out in 1995. If I remember correctly, the internet as we know it didn't exist until 1996. 2007. No, that's incorrect. That's incorrect. That's a lie. But the internet wasn't as big of a thing by the time it came to when Serial Experiments Lain came out. That came out the year I was born, 1998, and it is crazy to me that Evangelion came out before I was born. That anime is older than me. That's weird. But the way that both of these series, so how Evangelion explores the loneliness is showing all of these attempts by all of these characters to get close to each other that just keeps getting thwarted by the situations they're in or the desire not to be hurt. And it's as really exhibited in, they even talk about it, they call it the hedgehog's dilemma, about people trying to get close to each other but just stabbing each other instead. And it's just kind of a melancholic series in many ways. Serial Experiments Lain definitely is. However, I'll say that one is just outright trippy from the get-go. How I like how Serial Experiments Lain explores the loneliness and the connections between people is through The Wired. And The Wired is like an extra interesting form of the internet where people can connect more literally through it, from what I can tell. And it appears like you can like enter the internet, like it's like a super intense form of virtual reality where you can be wherever at any time. And Lain herself, unlike Shinji, who is a normal human boy, Lain is a program that was made to connect the Wired, and it brings, Lain focuses more on the questions of, is there a God? Does it matter if there's a God? Is there a God in the Wired? If you could just exist in the Wired, is having a body worth it? And it just kind of really delves into that situation. And Lain misguidedly decides to merge the Wired and the real world together to make everyone connected, to make it better, which is actually parallels in End of Evangelion, Shinji's decision to instrumentalize everyone. I'm not sure what the verb they use, but he turns the whole world into soup. Those two decisions actually mirror each other fairly well. The big difference, I think, for Serial Experiments Lain and Evangelion in that regard is that the turning people into soup is visually horrific, but most people seem to be happy right before they soupify. However, with Serial Experiments Lain, people are miserable in that crazy reality. Things do not get better at all, and Lain makes the self-sacrificial choice to delete herself from everyone's memories, and essentially making it so that all the events never happened, which is an interesting way to look at it, and like goes and meets her virtual father, who might be God. Get back to me. I'll get back to you on that one. I'm not really sure. But with Serial Experiments Lain and Neon Genesis Evangelion, I think they both have surprisingly positive messages of that the antidote to like human loneliness and human suffering isn't through a crazy magical spiritual solution such as instrumentality, or this crazy technological solution such as merging the Wired with the real world or shedding your bodies or whatever. But it's both of these main characters come to the conclusion, you can decide whether too late, you can decide if Shinji is too late or not. Both these characters come to the conclusion that getting to know people in reality without that barrier in between, where you aren't a machine or a god, where you have imperfections, is how you get through it. Like, the human suffering exists, you can't get rid of it, but the antidote to feeling like the world will end and you'll always be alone is is to really connect with the people around you, to let your guard down, allow yourself to be maybe hurt a little bit, allow yourself to talk to other people, to truly connect with other people, which requires risk, and that's okay. I will say, I think that Serial Experiments Lain does have a slightly happier ending, whereas Neon Genesis Evangelion seems more of a cautionary tale. Whereas with Lane, what she did allowed her to, when she undid her merging the Wired with reality, she was able to, even if her friends didn't remember her, kind of go back and connect with them, and then connect with her father, and kind of live in that extra existence world. And with Neon Genesis Evangelion, it kind of was a little too late, almost. I mean, he turned the whole world into soup. Maybe don't give depressed teenagers godlike powers, as I mentioned. So he turned the whole world into soup, and I don't know if they're coming back or not. I saw a very hopeful theory on Tumblr that Asuka just willed herself back from the LCL, and then everyone else can come back, but I'm not sure that that's what happens. That'd be great, but I'm not really sure if that's what'll happen there. Yeah, these two stories and their explanation of loneliness and the two different kinds of technology used was just fascinating to me. I watched them back to back, so it really kind of forced their similarity onto me. Maybe these are the ravings of an otaku gone wild, but, you know, I thought I'd share my thoughts with you. If you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Liliana Rowena,